What's going on, world? Eric Lawton here from Bred Concepts, and before we get into today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about self-defense. As we all know, human trafficking is at an all-time high, and at least I believe all-time high. I mean, I don't know the actual statistics, but I know it's pretty bad. And I think especially in places where it's not quite as easy to get a pew-pew, as we'll call it, a freedom distribution device. It's still important for people who are vulnerable to be able to defend themselves. This company called Papa Safety was gracious enough to send me this to check out, and I will admit I kind of killed the battery on the flashlight there, but the alarm still works. However, I'm not going to switch this on so you can hear the alarm because it is deafening. Basically how this works is you flip that up to press down, and it's a pepper gel. So gel is actually safer than pepper spray because you don't have to worry so much about, you know, the mist being caught in the wind and then going back at you. So pepper gel is definitely a better self-defense option. And like I said, the alarm is deafening. In a situation where somebody would actually have to use this, I would suggest setting the alarm and then throwing it so that your assailant can actually pull it out of your hands and just stomp it until the alarm stops working. Yeah, I know I'm insane. I play out scenarios in my head. But I will leave a link in the description below. It is a pretty cool little device. I'm probably going to give it to my daughter because I actually happen to live in a place where freedom distribution devices are very much legal. And if you're wondering why I keep saying that, it's because, you know, I don't want to say the magic word and, you know, get banned or demonetized or anything. But yeah, it's a pretty cool little device, actually. I've bought pepper gel before and pepper sprays for people who I thought needed it, but it wasn't anything like this. This is neat. Like I said, I did kill the light, so I got to recharge it for the light. But the light and the alarm is fully rechargeable. Comes with a couple different like lanyard options if you wanted to have it like hanging from a keychain or a purse or a backpack or something. And it even comes with this cool little case. So very cool. Papa Safety, however you guys pronounce that. I definitely like the product for sure. And I will leave a link in the description. And God bless you guys. Let's get into the interview. Part 2, Fuerza, American Bulldogs. Did you get the papers? The papers showed up in the mail? Safe, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they did.
Nice.
I got them. I have them in my office right now. Haven't really put a way to, or found a place to put them, like on the wall or something.
Nice. So give me the update.
I'm sorry, what's that?
So give me the update. What's new in the dog world for you?
The update, man, back to basics. Honestly, just back to basics in reflecting on all the mistakes I've made in the last, decade. I don't count before the decade because I was just kind of really getting my feet wet, but in the last decade is where I've been looking. I was lucky enough to get some good dogs to start with, so I didn't make huge mistakes like where I bought my first dogs or anything like that. But I mean, the development of puppies and kind of everything, how I raised my dogs and everything, I had a lot to learn. I was overfeeding American Bulldogs, which in a lot of other breeds like Great Danes, Mastiffs, you get knuckling over. So I didn't really know about that till I ran into the problem and I had to learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now anyone who gets a puppy from me, like I tell them, hey, make sure they don't eat rags or socks you have on the ground, and make sure you don't overfeed them. Because if you overfeed them, they're probably going to knuckle over.
What do you mean by knuckle over?
Knuckling over is when the puppy's muscle and bones grow faster than their ligaments and joints can keep up. So you say about their pasterns, so about where their wrists are in the front. They start to turn. It looks like a bend in the joint. If you Google it, you'll probably see some extreme cases. But when you do this a while, or you could even Google some mild cases where it looks like the leg kind of turns up in front of the paw and then goes straight up. So if you're real new, you might not notice that right away. But that's when you need to catch it. That's when you need to not give them that premium puppy food and give them just some filler food, like give them some cheap Pedigree from Walmart, or you can just keep giving your good puppy food and add in like sweet potato or some rice, a carb pretty much, some fats also, because the protein is what makes them knuckle over. Yeah, so you definitely don't want that. Kind of keep them light, don't overfeed them. And housing the dogs, I also had a lot of problems with. I tried plastic houses. I tried different types of dog houses. And in the end, what I did, because it rains a lot here, is I have my wooden dog house that's a little bit off the ground. You don't got to go a foot off the ground, 6 inches off the ground with some legs. And then I built like a carport style thing. 4x4 pressure treated posts, and then some sheet metal roofing down the slants one side, and that's a 10x10, and then the house is right outside that 10x10, and then the whole cage is 20x20. And I did concrete outside. I did concrete on most of it, on 75% of it. Just whatever is under that little carport thing I built. I didn't put concrete under that. I went with gravel and then hay on top. But just with all the rain, like the gravel got buried. So I'm just keep putting hay on over and over during the rainy seasons. And then I built my kennels. I have 3 20x20s, each with a carport and 2 dog houses sticking right outside that carport thing. But my issue is sunlight. It matters a lot how much sunlight you get a day. Because if you have all shade during the rainy season, man, it always stays wet. It stays wet like all day, all night. And like for the last 3 days, we haven't got any rain, and it's just been wet. Like the concrete has been wet in the shade. I swear it's growing like green stuff, so I have to pressure wash more often. So you always got to see where you house your dogs. And I did the cement on most of the kennels, and instead of getting a cement truck, I'm like, I'll just buy bags and do like 30 bags today, and my next day off I'll do 20 bags, and kind of do it bags by bags. And I went to the hardware store closest to us, to our house, and I was buying 60-pound concretes because I have to walk it from the pickup truck all the way down to where my dogs are. So I use wheelbarrows and stuff. The 60 pounds of concrete were like $550, and I did the math and how many I need. It's like $4K, and the concrete truck would have cost me like $2,800. So there's a huge mistake, and I'm just kind of learning about that. So next time, if I ever move or ever do another kennel, or my friends ever ask me about kennels, I could tell them like what to look out for in the best way and the mistakes I did, because it would have saved me a lot of time.
You're gonna have to to send me a picture of that.
I will.
So are you still, how many dogs are you up to now?
Okay, right now I have, let me see, 4. I'm at 7 right now, counting my retired dog. I'm gonna retire one female, retire her early. She gave me 2 litters, and I'm keeping 2 pups from that. So I think she's done. I don't need more of her DNA for me. And I'm going to be bringing in more puppies. I have a stud named Batman, and he's produced 5 litters, 3 at home and 2 with some other people. And even with the litters with my other breeder friends, I'm getting some pups back. It wasn't planned until I saw those pups. I'm like, all right, I'm going to need 1 from each of those. Bringing them back and just having the numbers down off of that 1 dog, it will help me really decide with more certainty if I want to start a line off of that individual dog. Because if you only have, let's say, a dozen puppies between 2 or 3 litters, then you have a good idea what those puppies are and what they look like and what they grow up to be. But if you put a lot of dogs down off of 1 dog, you see a lot of the genetics and the problems or the good stuff that comes out. So I put 28 dogs off of that stud dog who's about to turn 2 years old. He was used a lot for me. You know, I've never used a dog that much, that quick. Looking at all the pups, out of those 28 pups, we got 1 puppy with a kinked tail.
I got you.
And that was at another breeder's place. And, you know, it could be genetic or it could be developmental because it's part of the spine. So in utero, there could have been some developmental issues that we don't know. So that's just something I got to really watch out for. But, you know, it could be a 1 in 100 thing. So if I line breed off that dog, it'll be a 1 in 50 thing.
Gotcha.
So definitely putting puppies down and just being able to see all those puppies. You could see if there's any patterns with good stuff or bad stuff. So, you know, I still haven't decided if I'm going to make a straight line off of Batman, that male, or if we're just going to use him a few times and double up on him and maybe not, you know, breed him to his granddaughters or something like that. And I'm using Embark DNA to kind of see, but, you know, DNA tests, they only read markers, and some stuff doesn't have markers like entropy or kink tails or behavior or anything like that. You know, it's only telling me probably about two or 3 things I really want to know. Working on that, and another story about how I produced Batman. You know, that is a miracle that I have that dog, in the sense that I had his mom, and his mom was a super nice female, looked like a male, and I wanted to breed her to an outside dog. So I found a stud that I liked, and the stud was in California, so I got semen shipped in, and nothing. We ended up with no pregnancy. I paid $1,500, and he shipped me semen 3 times, and the shipping was almost $200 each time. So nothing. So the guy was nice enough to let me try again. I just had to cover the shipping. He shipped me some semen, and on the second shipment, he went to the vet, and the dog wasn't producing.
Oh, that's no good.
So, yeah. So that was 2 shipments I paid for, another $400. And, you know, we tried again, same dog, the 3rd heat from when I wanted to breed her. But this time we used one of the sons of the dog I wanted to use. And again, three shipments of semen, $600 for all the shipping in the box and everything. And we got some puppies. We got 3 puppies out of that. And I kept Batman, sold the female, and one of my good buddies ended up with one of the males, and that male was an all-white male, beautiful male. They named him Lucas. He's over at Salazar's American Bulldogs in Northern California. And when I had that puppy, it got an eye infection. So what happened is that female, the mother, she is prone to getting mastitis. So she actually got mastitis twice. So I stopped using her for breeding. Because one time she almost got mastitis 2 times in 1 litter. So the mastitis was pretty bad, and there was discharge, like pus.
Yeah.
And it got in that puppy's face. And I believe that's what caused the eye infection.
What exactly is mastitis?
Okay, so mastitis is when a female is nursing puppies, she can get a clogged milk duct.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not expressed, and if it makes too much milk, or it could even happen from a dirty environment, like the dog lays in the dirt and they could get an infection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you get milk backed up and the milk is no longer liquid, and you get an infection. And it can be pretty bad, and it can go 0 to 100 like really fast. Like you check the female in the morning and everything looks great, and then maybe you don't check her very good. You just kind of check on the pups, pick up the pups. You don't check the female, the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And at night you have a very, very obvious signs of infection and heat, and it's hard. So that's kind of what happened to me. I checked her in the morning and she was fine. And then I just 2 times during the day, I just only checked the puppies and weighed them, and didn't really pay attention to the mom as much as I should have. And she got mastitis pretty bad. There was discharge in the whelping box, so I stopped. I cleaned everything up. I actually had 2 litters at the time,
Mm-hmm.
both born on the same day. So I switched the puppies to the other female.
Oh, shit.
But I left the dog with the eye infection with her mom, because I said, what if I put an unhealthy dog with the healthy dog? So I kind of quarantined them together.
Gotcha.
And the puppy's eye got like really big, like it bulged almost. It was swollen, and you could see it like protruding from its head. So I had to get that eye open. And man, I had a hard time. The puppy was about 4 or 5 days old. Those eyes were so hard to open when they're that young. Since then, I have dealt with the eye infection. There's a name for it. I should have Googled the name, but I'll send you the name of that condition. It's very common in cats also.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that since then, and I was able to open the eyes because I did a bunch of research. And like I said, it's something I had never heard about, the puppies getting eye infections when that small before the eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
But after it happened, then I learned everything I could about it, and it's not something I learned before. And I didn't really have anyone I could call to kind of ask. Mm-hmm. But a day after I noticed the eye infection, I did get the eye open. Warm compress, a special tool from my first aid kit. I had this first aid kit that has like sutures and all this stuff, like survival stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a tool out of there, and I was able to open the eye and flush it out, and use another eye medication. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called like Temperament or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's for dogs. So the dog has its eye. It's almost 2 years old. It has its eye. It's just a little cloudy, lost vision in it, but it's a beautiful dog. I went to my first dog show, and I called all my breeder friends to go. And I have Batman, and he lost to his brother.
Mm.
Could have been, if that dog wasn't produced by me, I would say, it's the white color, it's more traditional, that's why I lost. But no, that dog was 15% better than my dog in every way. 15% taller, 15% bigger, 15% straighter. It's a nice dog.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just dealing with stuff that I didn't really know about, and I produced some really bully dogs, but I'm like, I want them to function also. Mm-hmm. So, after having a lot of pups, putting a lot of pups on the ground, I get some really, really bully ones, but I'll get some really nice working ones. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go see one of them tomorrow. I saw that dog like 4 days ago. I think I sent you a picture of that dog when it was about 6-7 months old. But I saw the dog 4 days ago at night, and it was looking really good. Very, very working type. Looks like a hybrid. And that's also something people should know. When I produce dogs, it's like 1 out of 8. I produce them more athletic than my bully dogs, even if they come from 2 bully parents.
I was just going to ask you that. If you've ever used the Scott or performance type at all.
No, I haven't. But I mean, those performance dogs are in the pedigree of these bully dogs. I got some American Bulldog Review magazines. You know, and all the bully dogs back then, they were mostly working. Like they had them work. Their dogs are more bully now than they were in the 2000s. And those dogs that are less bullies are in the pedigrees of our bully dogs today. So it's kind of a throwback kind of thing. And there's not really a lot of bully breeders who have a real line. Like there are some breeders who've been breeding a long time, and you know, they have some of the stuff they started with, but there's only a handful who have a real line of dogs. And when I say a line of dogs is when they've line bred and had just a family of dogs and not added a whole bunch of outside blood like every other generation, because they're not coming out with a lot of consistency. There's a lot of people producing beautiful dogs, but they're kind of in the same boat I am, where, you know, it's 1 out of 8, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10. They're coming out different. They're getting some variation. And I've kind of noticed and opened my eyes to this when I was in like the farm side of things, livestock and poultry, seeing how they breed their stuff. Like when you look at quail or you look at chickens or cattle, they're inbreeding much harder because they have the luxury of being able to cull stuff easier. You know, if they want to cull a chicken or some cows that are healthy, they just aren't really what they're after. I mean, you can eat them, no problem, you know, but with the dogs, we can't do that, you know. We can't just discard dogs that easy. We can pet home them, but it's not exactly the same, and we're not putting down as big numbers as livestock. I have a good example. I was talking to a poultry breeder, and he had one breed, all very uniform, and he had 2 sublines inside of that line. And I asked him what makes a subline, and he was telling me, well, I have the original cock, and he said I breed it to the best daughter, and then I picked the best daughter / granddaughter, breed it back to the original one. And he said I did that 5 times, and on the 5th time I ran into big inbreeding depression, so I went back and only kept them at 4 times the original rooster. He says I also did that with one of its brothers, and then I crossed the lines together. You know, and you don't see like real where the most common lines of dog, like true lines, are in working dogs. You have game dogs, and then you have military and law enforcement dogs, where they're really bred in a line. See, so I want to breed a true line. I'm only 3 generations in, but I have to take the baby steps, because I'm selling these dogs to the public, to families, and things can go bad really fast, but they could also go well really fast. And the last thing you want to do is create problems for a family. There's some problems I did have, and I never spoke about this, but I think it could be value to other breeders who are starting out. I sold a dog to one of the best families ever, you know, just a couple hours north of me, and they love that dog. And that dog had some issues. It's gone through 2 surgeries, and man, there's nothing I can do except feel bad. You know, the first surgery was for a ripped knee. You know, it could happen. You know, not always necessarily the breeder's fault. There could be slippery surfaces, whatever. To me, something I noticed was a stiff stifle in that dog. But you know, that surgery happened, and we went through it. the dog later on got a bulged disc in its back and actually became paralyzed.
Wow.
And that was another surgery for thousands. I'm not going to say how much, but I mean, people can look it up because that's the pet owner's business. But it was more than 10, less than 20.
Damn.
And they love that dog so much, and they're blessed enough to be able to afford the surgery. But like me, what do I do? Like, I'm like, my health guarantee is I replace your pup, but they don't want a replacement. You know, they love their dog.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where what can I really do? You know, all I can really do is try my best to produce the best, healthier dogs possible. You know, after that, you know, it really hits you, and you feel bad for the family, and you feel bad for the dog, but you kind of got to get over it and decide if you're going to breed or not. You just do the best you can. You know, I'm x-raying hips, I'm doing DNA testing, and trying my best, but stuff happens, you know.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Yeah. So trying to breed these bully dogs that have some functionality. Sometimes they'll be a little too bully. Sometimes they'll be a little more working style, and I'm just toting the line, trying to find the best. I've noticed some of my bully dogs, if I keep them thin, if I keep them in shape, about 50% of them really have that want to play tug and play with a ball and work. So those are the ones I'm selecting for breeding, and it's, you know, it's a little project, but I think in a few years I'll have some really nice bully dogs that'll be shredded with some working ability, but also dogs that would be able to be placed in the families,
right,
and not have the dog be, you know, 1,000,000 miles an hour where it takes a lot of work for the family. Because the only way I can keep my program going is by placing dogs in families, placing the extra dogs with them, the dogs that are not my keepers. And even when they're older, when they're 6 months or 10 months, I decided to make the cut. Those dogs have to go to families also. And it's just the way it is. And I think selling dogs is probably the worst part about breeding dogs. Not the worst, but one of the worst parts about breeding dogs. It just takes so much time. For example, yesterday, my 9-year-old daughter and I were taking pictures of dogs for probably 4 hours. You know, we snapped 1,000 pictures, and we had about 30 of them that were like really nice. So when you have puppies and you gotta sell some puppies, customers want like a picture like every 10 days because they change so much from 3 weeks old to like 12 weeks old. So there's a lot of marketing, a lot of pictures, a lot of stuff involved that really, I think, it just gets in my way of me enjoying my dogs. But it's not too bad. I don't absolutely hate it when I do a good job. Like, you know, I get some satisfaction out of it. But it definitely takes two people to try and take pictures for marketing.
Right.
And it can really hinder your advancement if you don't have that extra person and a nice camera for the shutter speed. You can get a lot of like videos with just a cell phone, and you can have them playing with each other and running and jumping. That's where a lot of videos come from of mine. So that's not too bad. I can get a lot of those, but those glamour shots are definitely a lot of trouble, more than they're worth.
So, yeah. We've discussed before the temperament of the American Bulldog, of the bully type American Bulldog. But how would you rate their trainability compared to other dogs?
Trainability. So the trainability in the American Bulldog, I'll talk about that first, can vary. Okay. So what I call the old school temperament, like from the 90s or 80s, I have a dog like that, and she's my brood bitch. She's older now. She's about 5 or 6, so she's a little more ornery, and she's very nice, very sweet to us, good with my kids. But when a stranger rolls up, she's not letting him get out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she can socialize. I could take her into town and walk her on the boardwalk, but not with other dogs around. Like, the other dog has to be at least 12 feet away. That I can't have other dogs run up, because it's on site if she feels like they're getting into her space. And the same at home with my other dog. She has to be separated. Mm. And then I have other dogs of mine that have more of the pet temperament, where I hear them barking at night, and it's because there's something out there. It's usually deer in the bushes making noise. Or those dogs, like, if a stranger's car pull up, they'll bark. But when the person gets out, sometimes the person can, like, you know, try to pet them, and then the dogs will be cool. So you have the two temperaments, the goofier temperament and the more serious one. Mm-hmm. But in those two temperaments, you have a lot of dogs that have the drives, like the food drive, the ball drive. They want to play, and you can really get them to be trainable if they have that willingness. Mm-hmm. And I say that's probably about 75% of my dogs really have that willingness to want to be trained. And I wasn't exactly breeding for it to, like, make it 90% or 99%. I was picking dogs based on other stuff first. Mm-hmm. That's very important, but it's not a deal breaker if the dog doesn't have that, because I'm at a higher percentage, so it just keeps happening. Mm. So comparing it to another breed for trainability, I used to have pit bull type dogs, and I think for me it's easier to train these dogs because they're more affectionate toward people. They're more of a people dogs, and they get their feelings hurt. Like, you can't overcorrect them, you can't yell at them, because it affects them a little more. They get a little bit of separation anxiety if they're used to being with you all day, like a house dog. Mm-hmm. So those things are certain traits that help make them more trainable. And I think if you, like in my yard right now, out of the 7 dogs, I think 6 of them are highly, highly trainable. Mm. One of them runs away from me when it's time to go back in the kennel. So,
what's the general weight on your dogs?
Okay, so my males are usually like 110, and my females are like 92. Mm-hmm. I do have an outlier male who's 125.
Gotcha.
And a big female is 100 pounds. I had a 100-pound female like twice.
When you're considering potential customers, what are some of the things you look for? What are some of the red flags?
Okay, so far I haven't had to tell anyone straight up no, but I want to see where they live in the family. So if they live in an apartment and they have, a few small kids under the age of like 4 or something, I kind of tell them, hey, these dogs, especially at 7 months, they can just knock your kid right over. And, there could be a coffee table there or something. I would prefer to sell this to somebody who has kids who are, 7, 8, 6 years or older. But if they have experience with the breed or with other breeds similar, then that's something they should know about. So there's that. And then also, I have colored American Bulldogs. They're heavily colored. The blacks, the chocolates, I have the dilutes in there. So some people are after that mainly. So I have to make sure that they actually want the dog for the right reason. And then prices can really vary. Like some people are willing to pay one price for something and not the other thing, even though the pedigree is the same. They're willing to take lesser of a dog for the color. So I really have to be careful with that. If I did end up getting a lesser dog that happened to have the color, I would rather just put it in a pet home here in town. It's a small town, but I can usually find like a good pet home for something like that. Mm-hmm. And my prices can be up to $2,000. I know there's a lot of people who sell their dogs for $3,000. A lot of people who sell their puppies locally very fast for like $1,000. And it just kind of depends on the markets, because there's been markets where people are paying a lot more for puppies, or they're willing to pay a lot more. But I do have a wait list, and I got to respect that wait list. And I might have 5 people on a wait list and have 4 puppies, but a lot of the times people on that wait list will skip to the next litter because they didn't get the female they wanted, or they didn't get the male of a certain type or a certain color. So when you have these heavy colored dogs, that's something you really have to take into consideration, because some people might just be after the color. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not the color, it's not this." It might not be for the breeder. I'm doing everything I can, health testing, temperament testing, and everything, and pick my dogs, pick my keepers the best I can. But that doesn't mean someone else will. And if you do end up if I do end up selling a puppy to someone else who's going to breed it, and the puppy looked great at the time, but it turns out to be mediocre, because that's what Mother Nature does sometimes, and they end up breeding it, and then they use your name behind it to say, hey, this and that. Or even if I pet home a dog and I don't neuter it, because I like to neuter and spay dogs when they have at least a year old, when they're in their adult body, their growth plates have closed, and their joints and everything is matured. And they end up getting a pet dog, and then, oh my God, here comes an accidental purebred litter too seems to happen. And then your name's behind it, and it was a pet quality dog, and they're breeding, dogs that should only be for pets, and your name's behind it. So, you kind of always have to always be checking. I check social medias for people, and kind of just talk to them and see what my gut feeling is about the family when I sell a pup. And so far, I've had good luck. I haven't had a time, the more dogs you do sell, the more chances there is to happen. But I haven't had a time where, this person said they weren't going to do this, and then they had puppies, and then I really wish it wouldn't happen. I haven't ran into that yet, luckily.
Right. I gotcha. So,
yeah.
You're in Oregon, right?
That's right.
And what are some of the extreme temperatures there from hot to cold?
Okay, so where I live, it's very mild. I'm like a couple miles from the beach. I'm in Southern Oregon. For us, we might get snow, but it melts usually the same day. Maybe once every 10 years we'll get snow for like a day or two. So not very much, but on average we're looking at freezing temperatures, maybe 15 to 25 days out of the winter, tops. Nothing too cold. And for heat, it's not very hot here. We'll have temperatures over 90 degrees, maybe about 10 days during the summer. Like we might get to 100 like 2 times, 3 times during the summer only. You drive another hour inland, and then it's a little hotter and a little colder. But there's parts in eastern Oregon that's a desert and mountains. It does get cold, and it does get very hot out there. Gotcha. But it's pretty mild where I'm at, so I do take that into consideration if I'm selling a dog to someone who lives in Minnesota or they live in the South where it gets really hot. So
I gotcha.
And my dogs can breathe pretty well. Most of them, all of them, have open airs. I do have some that breathe a little better than others, but it's not much. And I'm pet homing dogs often. So if there is a dog who I think can't breathe very well, because there is a difference, like when a dog is 12 months old to when a dog is 3 years old. If a dog can kind of breathe okay, but you're not totally happy at 12 months old, it's not going to breathe as good when it's like 3.5 years old. I'm not sure why. That maybe the dog gets heavier, more adult body, but I don't know if there's anything going on internally that thickens up or something, you know. But that's something I have noticed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and those, you know, it can be a lot of it genetic. A lot of stuff with breeding is definitely some polygenetic things, because it's not all one thing. It's not just how open their nostrils are. It can be their trachea, the elongated soft palate that can affect the breathing. So it's a lot of things going on at once. It's kind of like the rear angulation of a dog. It's not just one thing. It's not just high reared. You know, do they have a longer leg, or are they stiff stifled? Like what's going on? There could be several variables to affect it.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to like obedience and temperament and protection ability and things like that, how would you compare a male to a female?
Compare a male to a female. Well, the females definitely mature a little faster. Mm-hmm. So if a male isn't quite ready, quite getting it at a year old, you can definitely say have some patience, because the female will mature faster. So with something like protection, you know, we've had times where we're roughhousing inside the house, mm-hmm. and we had a year and a half old male just like not like it and come and it knows it's my dog, so it doesn't like bite my arm, but it puts its mouth on my forearm and doesn't bite down, but it's like barking and telling me to stop. So that was pretty young, like at a year and a half. That was pretty good. That specific dog, its mother had 3 litters, and I pet homed her right after she had her 3rd litter, and I pet homed her to a young couple with a daughter. And I'm not sure exactly how they worded it, but they said they had a neighbor or something that was like a Karen. Mm. And they had people over, and someone might have parked on the neighbor's grass, and the lady came in waving her arms and yelling, very upset. And the mom to that dog did the same thing. Like it came up, it grabbed its forearm, but didn't bite down, didn't leave bruises or bleeding. But the lady freaked out and ran off. So these dogs, they're like, they know, like what I was told by someone who trained shepherds and working American Bulldogs is the difference is the Bulldogs have more feelings. They know what's going on. They know the difference between a young adolescent person or an elderly person. And I was told, I don't want to make any shepherd people mad, but I was told that the shepherds were more robots, like more, you could train them, you could sick them on people. You could have an elderly person trespass, and the dog will treat it just as a big a threat as a 6'5" man in his 30s, that weighs 250 pounds. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of the difference there. But yeah, my dogs, they mature a little slower. So as far as training, you got to have a little more patience with them. After about 2 years, it's pretty sure you could train them. They're not as puppy like anymore after 2. Mm-hmm. With the males, the females, they mature a little faster.
I gotcha. Now,
yeah.
If you absolutely had to pick another breed to get into, what would it be?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I think, so if I was going to pick another breed, most likely it would be because my lifestyle changed. And I would say maybe my lifestyle changed and I would need another dog because I needed a working dog. Mm-hmm. So there are working American Bulldogs, but let's just say I don't go with that. I would go towards the Doggo Argentino, mm-hmm. or a working Alapaha, because there are some breeders out there that are take their working Alapahas very seriously. And they're very, very old school. Some of them are still very hot. Mm-hmm. And if we're hog hunting, the Alapahas would be pretty good, but the Dogos are a little larger. Mm-hmm. So I think the Dogo. I would go with the doggo. And as far as maybe a crossbreed between both of them, maybe, you know, because I have a soft spot for my American Bulldogs, maybe I would do a cross for working purposes. But in the back of my mind, I know a pure doggo could probably do better.
So, if you had to outcross your American Bulldogs, it would be to a doggo?
If I was doing a crossbreed for working purposes, yes, I would outcross to a doggo.
I gotcha. So, we've touched on it before, but I wanted to ask again to see if anything's changed. What does your diet look like for the dogs?
What does my what?
The diet look like?
Oh, the diet. Okay, good. Thank you for asking that. So, I was feeding, I believe, Victor last time I spoke to you. And one thing I've noticed is some of these dog kibbles are pretty good, and then they get popular, and then they get bought out by these bigger companies. And for some reason, the candy bar companies own the dog food companies. It's like one candy company owns one dog food, and then the competitors for the other one, I think it's like Mars or whatever, buys the competitive other competition of dog food, and then quality seems to go down after they got bought out. So I was feeding Victor before, and it was pretty good, and then they got bought out, and it was still okay, but it wasn't the same. Like, it looked different. Like, I'd get different sizes, colors, some like spots, like some kibble that was greasier. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. Well, I don't know. I still kept feeding it. And then there was that whole thing with the recall for the salmonella. So the salmonella doesn't affect the dogs, but, you know, if you're feeding your dogs inside and you have children, or you feed your dogs and you don't wash the bowls and you touch your countertops, you know, you can have cross-contamination with salmonella in your house. And that's what happened. There was some children who got sick, and a couple of them did go to the hospital for the salmonella. So they got pulled off the shelf, and I switched to a diamond. I just switched to a diamond kibble. I'm kind of trying it out. So far, so good. But, you know, I'm thinking about going back to Purina Pro Plan. It was very good when I fed it, but here in my little small town during the pandemic, it was kind of hard to get. And when I would run out, I would have to switch to something else. So for some reason, that company, sometimes it was hard to find. You know, I do have the restaurant, and I order freight every week. So I've been thinking about making time, because I always knew I could do this, is order chicken and order stuff and feed raw. And I can make the time to prep everything, but it's just, I'm still kind of, you know, what if I can't always, you know, wash my bowls more often and stuff, you know, especially when you have a lot of dogs. So as of right now, I'm not feeding raw, but it's really something I might do. Feeding raw would probably be better if I got everything right as far as what to feed and how much to feed, fats and protein and everything. But right now, I'm feeding the kibble for the convenience.
Do you have a dish machine at your restaurant?
Yes, I do.
Just, switch out the bowls, throw them in your truck, throw them through the dish machine every night.
You know, I might just get a dish machine at the house.
Yeah. So
I might just do that, because that would be pretty easy.
Do you give the dogs any kind of supplements?
Supplements. I was doing a little bit of vitamin C, and then vitamin B, and sometimes some red cell when I trim them down. So kind of like a little, I don't know how to call it, like a pre-summer diet, like to get them in the summer, just to get them slimmed down and in shape. And then, you know, it makes a difference. They look really good when I have them in the winter weight compared to the summer weight. I'll trim them down. They look pretty good. But other than that, as far as supplements, females right before I think they're going to go into heat, I'll just do prenatals, and then do the prenatals until a week before the puppies are born.
Now, is there a special type of prenatal vitamin, or do you use the ones that are for humans?
Yeah, the human grade, I go to the Walmart or order it from like Amazon or Walmart.com, and it's DHA and folic acid. So it's just a 2-in-1 DHA folic acid. I know they have other prenatals that have more stuff in them, but what I want is just those two things, just in case something happens. I don't have to blame something else, because dogs can absorb nutrients different than people, and I don't know which mineral it is that if they have too much of it, they can't absorb another one. I know vitamin E is like that, which is liver. You feed them too much liver, it can affect the way they absorb other nutrients. And instead of just going through and trying to read everything and learn a bunch of stuff, I'll just stick with those two basic ones.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So I had one last question. What is your favorite registry for the American Bulldog besides the BBF? What is your favorite registry and why?
Okay. So this can be a little controversial, but I'm not afraid to say it. I like the NKC because they're the largest registry. They're friendlier to the heavier colored dogs. And I like the ABRA lady who has American Bulldogs out of Canada, runs that registry. Good customer service, doesn't send physical papers. She sends you your paperwork in an email, and then you could print it out if you'd like. I have a lot of breeder friends in Mexico, and we're using the NKC, and then we have to FedEx the documents. Like, they FedEx me the documents, and then I send them to the NKC filled out. NKC send them back to me, and then I FedEx it to them. It costs them $110 to the FedEx each way. But we've sent them in the regular mail, and they just get lost, and then I get them back returned like 8 months later. So if we were using the ABRA, that'd be super easy, just an email away. But the ABRA doesn't register their DQs, and their disqualifications are a little more strict. I remember dogs without tails, they couldn't be registered or shown because it could be an extension of the spine, and they're not as friendly to the heavier colored dogs. There are other really good registries. You have the ABA, and they've put on some shows over here in the West, which are really good, and I want to participate, so I would have to register. I'd go for that. But the NKC is my favorite. I'm familiar with it, and I think a majority of the dogs are NKC registered. So it's the NKC for me.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I just thought of another question.
All right.
So, what percentage of your litters come out heavily colored?
Okay, the percentage of pups in my litters that come out heavier colored right now is probably 80%. And it is kind of on purpose because I'm selecting heavier colored dogs, but I always have to have in the back of my mind, I have a reputation for having heavier colored dogs. So if I produce a heavier colored dog that's not up to par, it screams, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like, it could almost be like kind of see I told you so from the haters, like he's only after the color, and I'm not. So with the colored dogs, I'm even like more heavy and looking at them more and going over them more, like make sure, they're up to my standard. And I don't know, the standard colored dogs that I do get, for some reason, just out of the draw of luck, because I know how genetics work, they seem to be larger. The standard colored dogs, the ones that have the most white on them, they seem to be larger. And I know there's not an exact correlation. It's just kind of the luck.
I gotcha.
So yeah, a good 80% of them are coming out heavier colored.
So where can people get a hold of you?
So you can find me on Facebook, Fuerza American Bulldog. I'm on Instagram, also as Fuerza American Bulldog. And then my phone number is 541-260-3634. And, you can text or call me. If I'm working, I'll just answer as soon as I can. But, people don't have to call me just when they want to buy a dog. If you're thinking about buying a dog 2 years from now, I welcome questions. I'm cool with it. If I have time, I'll answer and talk to anyone. If I'm a little slow to reply, it's just because I'm busy. If you're starting out and wanting to buy an American Bulldog, take your time and make sure you know the type of dog you want. I bought really quick, but I was lucky that it was a good dog. So just people who are starting out, take your time.